That feeling, you know it, right? That
Yeah.
little prickle that maybe you're being watched online.
Yeah.
Or maybe when an ad pops up for something you literally just thought about.
Oh, yeah. Happens all the time.
For a lot of us, it's this constant background noise, this reminder that our personal data is, well, it's out there. It's
Yeah.
being used, tracked, targeted. And honestly, it often feels like we have very little control.
Almost none,
But
sometimes.
what if that wasn't the default setting?
Ugh.
What if privacy was actually a core feature, something built into the very DNA of technology, right from the absolute beginning?
That's the dream, isn't it?
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. The concept is privacy by design. And it's much more than just slapping on a privacy policy after the fact. It's really a foundational shift, both philosophically and practically. To help us unpack all this, we're digging into a really crucial document. It's Opinion 5/2018, the Preliminary Opinion on Privacy by Design. This came out from the European Data Protection Supervisor, the EDPS, back on May 31st, 2018.
And it's not just some dry legal text either. It's important to stress that.
No, exactly. It feels more like a visionary roadmap for how technology should be serving humanity.
Precisely. And that roadmap is, well, that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to explore where this idea even came from, its history,
Right.
how it critically evolved into a real legal obligation with the GDPR. That's the EU's General Data Protection Regulation.
Huge deal, the GDPR.
Massive. And then we'll get into the practical side, the actual methodologies for implementing it, because the underlying truth here is, frankly, pretty profound. The extent to which we can actually enjoy our fundamental human rights now really depends heavily on how technology is designed.
Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it. We hear these terms thrown around a lot, privacy by design and data protection by design and by default. Sometimes they sound almost the same,
Yeah.
but you mentioned the EDPS makes a pretty sharp distinction.
They do, and it's a really important clarification.
Why is that? What's the key difference we should grasp?
Well, privacy by design. Think of that as the big overarching vision. It's got this ethical dimension, aligning technology with human values, fundamental rights. It's the grand idea, the philosophy.
Okay, the why.
Exactly. Then you have data protection by design and by default. Now, that refers to the specific, concrete, legally enforceable rules, the stuff mandated by Article 25 of the GDPR.
Ah, so that's the legal teeth.
That's the legal framework, yeah. It's designed to help achieve that bigger ideal. The EDPS really wants to make sure we don't just focus on, minimum legal compliance and lose sight of that larger ethical goal.
Right, so the law is a tool, but it serves this bigger ambition. Now, this idea, building privacy in, it sounds almost revolutionary today, but you mentioned it has history. It's not brand new.
Not at all, actually. It's got surprisingly deep roots. You can trace elements back to the 1970s.
Really? The 70s?
Yeah, pioneers like David Acham. He was already exploring concepts around data minimization, anonymous transactions, things that were foundational for what we now call PTTs, privacy-enhancing technologies.
Huh. BTs. We'll come back to those, I bet.
Definitely. But, for decades, the focus in early internet development wasn't really on privacy. It was all about functionality, scalability, openness.
Getting it to work, basically.
Getting it to work, exactly. Privacy often got pushed aside. But then a really critical turning point came in 2013.
The surveillance revelations.
Precisely. That was a huge wake-up call. It forced organizations like the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, to admit the surprising scale of monitoring that was happening, and that directly pushed them to start thinking about integrating privacy much more actively into internet protocols. They realized the basic plumbing needed fixing.
And around that time, maybe even a bit before, wasn't that when the actual term privacy by design was coined by Anne Cavoukian?
Yes, exactly. Anne Cavoukian, who was the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, Canada, she laid out her famous 7 foundational principles.
And one of those really jumps out. Privacy as the default setting. Why is that one so foundational? What does it mean in practice?
It's foundational because it completely flips the usual approach, Instead of you, the user, having to dig through settings and actively try to protect your privacy.
Which nobody does, let's be honest.
Well, not enough people. This principle says privacy should just be the automatic built-in state. You shouldn't have to do anything. It shifts the burden from you onto the system itself.
So it's opt-out becomes opt-in, or maybe just inherent.
Exactly. Inherent is a good word. It's secured by default. Which brings up that classic philosophical question, doesn't it? Does technology shape society, or does society shape technology?
Right. The chicken or the egg.
Sort of. There's that great quote from Melvin Kranzberg, the technology historian. Technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral,
Meaning?
meaning its development isn't inevitable. We can shape it. We must shape it according to our values. And the GDPR actually echoes this in its preamble, saying data processing systems are designed to serve man. That puts the responsibility squarely on us, the builders.
And that responsibility feels more urgent every single day, doesn't it? We're seeing this explosion of big data. The Internet of Things is moving from novelty to reality.
Smart homes, wearables.
Even devices inside the human body, like pacemakers showing up in court cases, apparently.
Yeah, that's happened. It's wild.
Plus, you've got AI accelerating, blockchain. All these developments mean the decisions being made right now by engineers and businesses, they're going to have huge, lasting impacts. Human rights can't be an afterthought.
Absolutely not. They have to be baked in from the start.
Which brings us back to that crucial moment in 2018. GDPR arrives, and suddenly this idea, data protection by design and by default, it wasn't just a nice recommendation anymore.
Nope. It became, as the EDPS puts it, a legal and fully enforceable obligation.
The law. So what does Article 25 actually demand? What do organizations, these controllers of data, have to do?
Right. Article 25 makes it crystal clear. Organizations have to implement the right technical and organizational measures. And crucially, not just after everything's built, but proactively. Right from the design phase and then throughout the entire operation phase.
So the whole life cycle.
The entire life cycle, yes,
Yeah.
from concept to retirement. And the goal is to effectively bake in safeguards that ensure you're complying with all those core GDPR principles, data minimization, purpose limitation, integrity, confidentiality, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Ultimately protecting people's fundamental rights.
And how do they figure out what measures are appropriate? Is it just a checklist?
Not quite. They have to consider the state of the art, what's technically possible. They have to look at the implementation costs, naturally. And critically, they need to consider the specifics, the nature, scope, context, and purposes of the processing they're doing.
Right.
And then they weigh all that against the actual risks the processing poses to individuals. So it's a thoughtful, risk-based approach, not just ticking boxes. The protection has to be genuinely effective.
Okay, effective integration. And that by default part seems really powerful too. You mentioned it earlier. It means processing only the data that's strictly necessary for each specific purpose.
Exactly. It applies to the amount of data you collect, how much you process it, how long you store it, and who can access it. And a really key point. Personal data should not be made publicly accessible by default. You need a specific reason, usually consent.
So my car sharing app example.
Right.
It should only use my location to find me a car nearby.
Right.
It shouldn't, by default, just spray that location data to, I don't know, local bike shops or advertisers without asking me first.
That's the perfect illustration. And these rules, they have ripple effects. Even if you're just a service provider or processor, you indirectly have to design your systems so the controllers can comply.
Oh, okay.
And while Article 25 doesn't hit developers directly, another part of GDPR, Recital 78, encourages them to build in privacy safeguards from the start. Public bodies are also told to lead by example in their contracts.
So it's trying to push the whole ecosystem.
Yes. And another crucial by design tool here are DPIA's data protection impact assessments. Article 35 mandates these for any high-risk processing, and you have to do them before you start processing. It forces you to think through the risks up front.
Right, proactive again. And it seems this isn't just a GDPR thing. The opinion mentions privacy by design popping up elsewhere in EU law.
It does. You see the principles reflected in things like the e-privacy directive, which covers electronic communications. It's in the radio equipment directive, the IIDS regulation for digital identity, even in rules about smart energy meters.
Wow, so it's becoming a really pervasive expectation. Which leads to the big question. How do we actually do it? How do we go from these legal mandates to actually building things differently?
Yeah, that's where the engineering methodologies come in. And it's a big shift because historically, privacy was often seen as an afterthought, right? Something you bolt on at the end, if at all.
Like a feature, not fundamental.
Exactly. Now, it has to be treated like security as a core, non-functional requirement. It needs to be embedded right from the start of development. It's just part of how the system has to work.
Okay, so how do engineers approach that? Are there frameworks?
There are. Some methodologies build on traditional IT security confidentiality, integrity, availability, but they add specific privacy goals. One framework talks about 6 protection goals, adding things like unlinkability, making it hard to tie data back to a specific person. Think anonymity.
Okay.
Transparency, making sure you can actually understand and reconstruct what happened with the data, so good logging, documentation. And intervenability, allowing people or regulators to step in and make changes or corrections.
So it's about control and understanding, not just locking things down.
Precisely. And you see similar ideas from NIST in the US, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They talk about predictability, so you can reliably know how your data is used. Manageability, giving you granular control, changing, deleting, selective sharing. And disassociability, basically processing data without tying it to individuals unless absolutely necessary. Think minimization, anonymization again.
Got it. So different ways to frame it, but similar core ideas. Are there specific processes teams use?
Yes, like the Linden methodology from Belgium, it's very risk-focused. You
Yeah.
map out how data flows, identify potential privacy threats like linking data, identifying people, them not being aware. Then you analyze the risks and pick strategies to mitigate them, often using those PEATs we mentioned earlier.
Right, the privacy-enhancing technologies. But it sounds like this needs buy-in from the whole organization, not just the engineers. You mentioned the entire life cycle approach.
Absolutely critical. It's not just coding. It's planning, design, testing, deployment, maintenance, right through to decommissioning the service. And that means organizational governance, management structures, and yes, having data protection officers, DPOs, involved right from the very early stages is vital. They need to be in the room.
Makes sense. And are there, official standards emerging for this?
Yes, definitely. There are significant standardization efforts. You've got international bodies like ISO/IE developing standards for privacy frameworks and architecture. The IETF, as we said, put out guidance for internet protocols, RFC 6973, and European standards bodies are also working specifically on data protection and privacy by design and by default standards to create a common baseline for industry.
Okay, so the structures are being built. Let's circle back to those PETs, the privacy-enhancing technologies. You call them the building blocks. Give some concrete examples we might recognize.
Sure. Think about attribute-based credentials. Instead of logging in with your full identity, maybe you just prove you're over 18 without revealing your birth date. That's a PET. Or something really common now. End-to-end encryption in messaging apps like Signal or WhatsApp. That's a PET.
Right.
Privacy-focused search engines like DuckDuckGo. Browser controls like Do Not Track, though its effectiveness is debated. And then more advanced stuff like differential privacy, which allows companies to collect usage statistics, say, for improving a service, but mathematically ensures they can't link that data back to any specific individual.
Okay, so the tools are there.
The tools are definitely there. The technological competence exists. The real challenge, honestly, isn't inventing the tech anymore. It's getting it widely adopted and properly integrated into products and services.
Which leads us to the next question. If the tech is there and the law is there, at least in Europe with GDPR, why isn't this just standard practice everywhere? The opinion itself notes that uptake is still limited.
Yeah, it's a puzzle, isn't it? Despite incidents like Cambridge Analytica raising awareness and GDPR providing the stick, adoption hasn't been as fast as hoped. But the EDPS also points to growing public sensitivity. People are caring more, and they're developing incentives for companies.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we accelerate this?
Well, it needs a push from multiple directions. First, continued research and development. We need to keep improving PTs, make them easier to use, more affordable. It's an ongoing process.
Okay.
Second, policy prioritization. Governments, especially the EU, need to keep promoting PTs and privacy by design high on their agendas. That means funding research, maybe through bodies like ENISA, the EU Cybersecurity Agency.
Right. Keep the focus on it.
Third, international cooperation. Things like the EDPS's own network, IPN, the Internet Privacy Engineering Network. It brings together engineers and legal experts, including folks from across the Atlantic, to bridge that gap between law and code.
Collaboration is key.
Definitely. Fourth, public administrations leading by example. When governments demand privacy by design in their own IT systems and public services, like the Tallinn Declaration called for, they act as trailblazers and create real market demand.
Use their purchasing power.
Exactly. And fifth, we probably need better economic incentives, especially for smaller businesses, SMEs. Help them overcome the costs or perceived complexity of investing in EPTs. But the flip side is also true.
Which is?
Companies that do embrace this will increasingly gain a competitive advantage. As people become more privacy aware, trust becomes a huge differentiator. Building that loyalty, that's valuable. There was a Deloitte report back in 2018 highlighting the shift towards the social enterprise, where ethical relationships are just critical for success.
So it's not just compliance, it's actually good business sense.
Yeah.
That's a powerful argument. It really is a call for businesses to, as the opinion says, use their resources, capabilities, and creativity to build services that put people, individuals, back in control of their data.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it underlines that the main obstacle isn't the technology itself. It's the will, the commitment to apply it ethically.
That brings us to a bigger picture, doesn't it? Beyond the law, beyond business advantages. How does all this connect to this growing conversation around digital ethics and embedding human values into technology? It feels like part of a larger shift.
I think it absolutely is. There's this growing unease, this feeling that maybe technology has gotten away from us a bit, that it's not always serving humanity first.
Yeah, that resonates.
The worry is that short-term business models, often based on data commoditization, have started to override fundamental rights, and the risks are serious. We're talking automated profiling leading to potential discrimination, impacting people's opportunities, their choices, their human dignity, which is a core value in the EU Charter.
Human dignity itself.
Yeah.
Wow.
The EDPS even set up an ethics advisory group that confirmed this view. Human dignity should remain inviolable in the digital age. And they made the point that you can't separate people from their data. Persons and their data are two inseparable concepts.
That's incredibly profound. You are your data, in a sense, online. And this isn't just a European thing, is it? We're seeing global efforts, too.
Absolutely. Look at the IEE, the big engineering organization. They have a global initiative on the ethics of autonomous and intelligent systems. Their goal is explicitly to reframe the notion of success in tech, to prioritize ethical values for individuals and society.
Reframing success itself.
Yeah. And even the IETF, the Internet Standards Body we mentioned, they now have guidance pushing for human rights protocol considerations, formally acknowledging the Internet isn't value neutral and that human rights need to be actively considered when building its foundations.
So the tide is turning. Maybe slowly, but it's turning.
It feels like it. And that's why privacy by design is so significant. It's more than just rules or code. It's this unprecedented opportunity to really embed ethics, to boost respect for human values right into the core of technology. It's a call to everyone involved, companies, developers, public bodies, to consciously shape what they do to serve the common good, to make technology truly empowering.
Wow. Okay, what a journey we've taken today. We started with that feeling of being watched online
Yeah.
and traced the idea of privacy by design from its early roots in the 70s through Anne Cavoukian's principles. We saw how GDPR turned it into a real legal force, shifting the responsibility with data protection by design and by default.
Making it mandatory.
Exactly. Then we dug into the how, the engineering methods, the standards, those crucial PTs, the privacy-enhancing technologies that make it possible.
The practical tools.
And finally, we zoomed out to see this as part of a much bigger vital movement towards digital ethics and ensuring technology actually serves human values.
And hopefully, as we always aim for, this knowledge is now clearer, more understood. Because understanding how we can demand and build a more human-centric digital world is the first step towards actually doing it.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. As you go about your digital life today, tomorrow, just think about what it would actually feel like if privacy wasn't something you constantly had to worry about or fight for, but something that was just there, built in by default. What kinds of new possibilities for connection, for trust, for innovation might that unlock? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into designing privacy into our digital world. We really hope you continue to explore these critical topics.